Good morning, Philippa, and Merry Christmas. I've got my Christmas jumper on. We're nearly there.
You did better than me. It's a very subtle Christmas jumper. Mine are very bright, so maybe it's a good thing I don't have my bright Christmas tree and Rudolph jumpers on. But yes, Merry Christmas. I'm going to guess you're all organised, aren't you?
I'm completely organized. Presents are wrapped, house is dressed. I've even ordered my food from a very well-known retailer. And so I'll be picking that up shortly. But I can't believe we're at the end of 2025 and we are at the end of our second series of We've Got a Message.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I'm still can't quite get my head around the we're coming to the end of 2025 because I still think I'm remembering the New Year celebrations from the beginning of the year. Only just through those, and then we're on to into the next one. So yeah, but I'm so pleased with. I'm actually really proud of our second series. So we changed it up a little bit with a few guests, and I think it's been really a learning for me with listening to other people and their experiences. So I'm really delighted that we've coming to the end of series two.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And having those guests and listening to their journeys with a theme of new, and we'll go through and remind ourselves who said what, where, and when, but also how they incorporated expertise of coaches into their journey to help navigate those challenges. So we had Romy, we had Evelina, and we had Andy. So let's start with Romy. Remind me, what were our main points that we discussed with Romy?
Well, we were talking to Romy about creating a new team. So quite a
Yes.
new thing that can be a little bit of that, oh, it's a challenge, need to get it right, quite a responsibility. And I thought some of the things that he came through with, which were really insightful for me, was around looking to recruit smarter than you. So
Yes.
that takes a little bit of dampening of the ego, but he got actually some of that advice from a coaching advice in try and make sure that you're looking not just for the same as you all the time, but looking for someone who's a real expert in that field, and be okay with the fact they're smarter than you because that's what's going to really deliver well. And then he talked a bit as well about sort of how he made sure that he was setting up the team to perform well. So the second thing that really came through to me was about the setting of expectations with the vision. So the why are we doing this, and then where do we expect to get to, and then leaving the how into the individuals. So that was then sort of the empowering part of it. But he set the expectations right from the start. And that included a bit about the culture. So recruiting who he would see as the people who would set the tone for the team. So I thought there was a really nice set of sort of insights from him on how you build a good team right from the outset. One of the things that he found as his challenge, still maybe a lot of us with difficult conversations, was managing underperformance.
Mm.
I think there were a few of those themes where, again, he was leaning on trusted advisors and a coach in order for him to almost talk through some of those scenarios, to affirm his what he knew instinctively, but to be able to affirm that a bit more and also just stretch his thinking, as well as to am I making the right decisions? Am I being objective about it? Particularly when you make connections with people and you don't want to have the difficult conversations, unless they're absolutely necessary from a business perspective. So yeah, those are the sort of key things I took away from that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a fantastic conversation because if you think a lot of the people that we work with are leaders and that will have had the responsibility of building teams at some point. And it's too easy, isn't it, to think that we need to be the smartest person in the room. And actually, it's interesting when you look at that concept because is that managing or is that leading? And certainly the conversation that we had with Romy, it really highlighted to me that to be a good leader, it's okay to recruit smarter than you because then you work to your strengths, they work to their strengths,
Yeah.
and the whole team is lifted. And it's something that's out there so much at the moment. I was listening to a podcast with Stephen Bartlett Diary of a CEO, and it was exactly about that point. And he has built many businesses where he absolutely learnt quite quickly that he didn't need to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
And the bit about conversations, I'm really name dropping here. The conversations and the difficult conversations. I went to listen to Gareth Southgate, obviously manager of the England football team, a few weeks ago. And one of the things he really pressed home was about having those difficult conversations early on, because otherwise it will impact the whole team and it is
Yeah.
much harder. So nip it in the bud, I suppose, is the easy way of saying it, early, and have it, because otherwise the ramifications of letting it run on and on and on can cause much more dramatic effects. And in the world of football, I don't follow football, but in the world of football, you can imagine that that's quite severe. But also in the world of any team, don't be afraid to have that conversation. So we've got great role models that are telling us that absolutely this is the way to move forward. So we had Romy, and then we moved on to Evelina, who talked about the challenges of becoming a new parent, returning back to work. And you and I we're both mums. We've been in this zone. So remind me about her conversation.
I think this was a different one because there's so much emotion involved with this. And I think during this conversation, like you said, both of us mums as well, then there's a lot of empathy that we give because we remember, the situations that we were going through as well at that time. And I do think that's an important part about being a coach anyway, is that empathy really helps to create a safe space to share and to be able to, yeah, trust in the relationship that you have with your coach to be able to be, truly open and vulnerable. I think with Evelina, the couple of things that came through was about expectations. One about yourself and performance. So from a work point of view, or it might be from a mum point of view. And the other was the piece about confidence. So Evelina talked a bit about I had a different set of priorities, but I also had this confidence that was somewhat eroded from not having practiced for a year while she was on maternity leave, and I don't think that's unusual at all. But the key thing is about recognizing that there is going to be a change. You've got an extra priority that tends to be your top priority. So you need to reset what your priorities are very consciously. And by resetting those priorities is when you can move through to accepting that there is a change. And then being at peace with yourself about what those changes are. So Evelina talked quite clearly about where there was these points of, guilt before she went on maternity leave because of organisational change and whether she'd be applying for jobs. She got great advice or a great question asked of, well, what would you say to someone in your team? And of course, as soon as you do that, your head spins and go, well, of course, you need to apply for the job and you do the best for you, and that's what you need to do. But it's so funny that when it's yourself, you have all of these extra emotions going on. So just bring it back to the logic, I think, helped her in a very emotional time as you're going through pregnancy and then return to work. So the priorities, the clarity on sort of your own confidence about I'm still, punching from a work point of view. And yes, I might be off for a time, but I'm going to be coming back and then contributing again. And I've still got the knowledge, I've got the power. I'll be able to come back in. But there's going to be a new normal that you're operating
Yeah.
under from your own expectations of confidence level, from balancing priorities is going to be higher, and understanding where you sit with that is really important to be able to navigate the change, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's brilliant. And that new normal is so important. And it's not just for mums, it's for new dads. It's for if
Yeah.
anything in life throws something that means it's got to change, it's how we do adapt to that. And you're quite right, Evelina talked really fluently about how she had to make those decisions. And that sounding board of having somebody to sort of sound it out to in a safe space is really important. And it might be a trusted friend, it might be a trusted colleague, or it might be somebody like us that will help coach you through that, to realize that this is all normal stuff,
Yeah.
and you're in a period of change, and actually that could be really exciting. And I know both of us have worked on change management and that being able to navigate. We're built for change. If you think about, we came from the apes and now look at us with a smartphone in our hand wherever we go. We're built for change, but we've got to embrace it and realize that this is a good thing, but we have to accept that things will have to adapt in
Yeah.
order for us to thrive in that respect. So brilliant. And then, of course, we ended up doing 2 episodes with the amazing Andy. And wow, they were such powerful episodes, episodes 4 and episodes 5, as we navigated our way around the ever prevalent the ever prevalent situation of burnout, which obviously is very personal to me, and we've talked about that before. So let's just talk about those 2 episodes and what stood out for you in particular, Philippa.
Well, I think the first thing was the openness with which Andy talked about it. Which I think is also where it makes it so powerful. So I know we've thanked him at the time, but the courage to be able to do that, and I know that that's been a bit of a journey for him too, is the when is the right time to start being much more open about it.
Mm.
But to me, it's I mean, there's a bit of a theme, I think, going along with a lot of these podcasts. Cliff tops is one of those themes. So there's a few curveballs, there's a bit of contracting about expectations, cliff tops. And I think that resonates with me when he painted this picture of him sitting at the top of the stairs and not being able
Mm.
to move. And it was like, I'm on the edge of a cliff top and I don't know what I can do. Yeah. The help around him. So the human connections that helped him to run through that was also again, a really powerful part of his description of his journey. So whether that was his wife, who was the one who almost intervened with it's a friend, and I'll just contact them, and then they'll contact Andy, who's a life coach, and then Andy was able to really already have an established, trusted relationship that he could really connect with someone in order to then help with, let's take a step back and really concentrate on me to start that recovery process. So I did think that the connections bit sang through, um, and the courage that he had in explaining, but also in his process, the courage of, first of all, deflecting, distracting into helping others, and then into I actually need to focus and be a bit
Mm.
selfish, which was his key tip really from the discussion was you need to get to that stage of being a bit selfish and saying I need to now go through the recovery process. But the connections bit he talked about, the human connections, but then being connected with his body, still reading every day any potential warning signs, anything that's going slightly off kilter, which could be triggers into another a burnout situation, and how he was also always having to readjust to it. So yeah, the courage and connections were the key things there for me in that one. But I mean, tell me from your side, because for you, like you said, it's quite a personal one. I'm sure reliving a little bit when you listen to the podcast as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my burnout occurred best part of 8 years ago, and back then there was a real stigma around it. You didn't talk about it. Most people termed it as depression back then, and it just wasn't. It wasn't a safe space to be in at all. Fast forward, I think Andy was really fortunate that he had a slightly better experience than I had. And it was so refreshing. And I know this sounds a little bit sexist, but it was so refreshing to hear a man talking about it because we don't often hear about it from these guys. And again, that's a little bit of a stigma piece. But I think today in society, we're much better at having a conversation around different parts of our mental health, our well-being, and but there's still a long way to go. So the more that we can talk about it, the better. But not just talk, it's about here's the toolkit, here's some ideas. This is what worked for this person. Have you thought about that? And the piece that Andy talked about checking in with his body physically, so doing that body scan for him, I think has been quite a saving grace that he can do literally every day. Nobody knows you're doing it. You can do it every day. For some people, it's journaling. For some people, it's going for a run, doing physical, whatever it might be. You find your thing. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic. And do you know what? Your body does keep the score. And I
Yeah.
think the more in tune you can be with yourself, your physical self, the better. And that's not being selfish, taking time out. If you don't look after you, you won't be able to look after anybody else and you won't be able to function. So, looking after you is the priority in everything that we've discussed with everybody and all of our wonderful guests. Because when you're performing well, it reflects out on everybody else, whether that's with a new team, whether that's with a new family in a new situation, or whether that's within you personally being able to show up. This series has been absolutely phenomenal. I've absolutely loved it. And I know we're going to have a big debrief about what series 3 looks like in 2026. But as we end this final episode of series 2, I'm going to have to ask you, Philippa, what is our message?
Thanks, Theresa. And I agree with you. I think series two has been really good. So, like I said at the top, it's something I'm really proud of us doing. Um, the whole theme was about sort of the adapting piece, so adaptability. And there's a fellow coach of mine who has actually written a whole thesis on it, but around that connection with adaptability and thriving on adapting and strong leadership. And I think hearing some of that of how people have adapted sees their leadership skills coming through. But really, what's helped each of them, as we saw a bit of a theme coming through, was having a trusted advisor or a coach who can help you. And that could be from sort of the non-directive, just asking some questions and then you being able as someone just to be talking through so that you understand your own thinking. Or it could be a bit more of a directive coaching. So when you look at the sort of Miles Downey spectrum from non-directive to directive and really giving some advice has helped each of those people that we spoke to at some point on their journey. And I think it affirms a course of action. It can be a sounding board for ideas. It could be rehearsal on a really difficult discussion. It could be advice. It could just be the asking the questions out loud that you know the answers to. I felt like listening back over the podcast as well that there was an overall theme. I love a bit of alliteration as well. So there was curveballs and there was contracting and then there was cliff tops. So
Yes.
the curveballs, a little bit about situations, things being thrown at you. And then the contracting was a bit about setting the expectations and resetting them. And then the cliff tops is where sometimes the people we spoke to found themselves in these situations. They're on the cliff top, and sometimes that coach was giving them safety net to jump off, yeah, in order to be able to move forward. Sometimes have a really exciting adventure in the process as well. But yeah, I did feel like there was that overall theme of curveballs, contracting, and then cliff tops, and that would be my key of the message for series two.
Amazing. And do you know what? I feel that we live and breathe those 3 C's absolutely in what we do every day and how we've navigated our own personal careers. So thank you for an amazing 2025 and our journey with our podcast. I'm looking forward to starting again in 2026 and have an amazing Christmas and New Year.
Same for you, Teresa, as well. So happy Christmas to you all.
Take care.